back to Gun Tote Minnesota. My name is Andrew. Today I'm going to be talking you through a pair of rings that were sent out to the channel from Anubis Defense. Anubis Defense has this mount called the One Mount. It's a one piece, so you have a strap on the bottom that connects these rings. It is a non-cantilever version. In the intro you saw a 20 MOA version, which I had on a 300 Blackout Ruger American with the DNT The One optic. I've been able to shoot that extremely far, beyond 900 yards with supersonic ammo and past 600 yards with subsonic ammo because of that mount. And then I also have Anarchy Outdoors rails installed in my rifle, which give me quite a bit extra for MOA built into the system. So for this one, I have 40 MOA already there because of the Anarchy Outdoors aftermarket rail, which I highly suggest everybody with an RPR or Savage, Tikka, whatever you have, Ruger, get one of these. These are so handy. But that being said, I put on the 0 MOA because I just don't need more in my current configuration. In the future, I probably will put on their 20 MOA because that'll give me 60 MOA, and that'll allow me to take this back out past 2,500 yards effectively with a few of the different optics that I have without using some sort of prismatic adjustment feature on the front bell of my optic for ELR shooting. So this is the 0 MOA. A couple of the features very briefly that I like is that it's unique and it doesn't have a cantilever. Sometimes a cantilever actually causes problems for me. I don't like having a cantilever on certain rifles in particular because it will push the optic where I don't want it to be. I like this one because it basically can set towards the middle and be very comfortable on the RPR. And then I can take this off and put it on other rifles if I really wanted to. And it's basically good to go. I'm not gonna have to worry about eye relief issues is kind of my point. Cantilevers are great for ARs. They're not always great for bolt guns. Kind of depends on what you're shooting. 2 pins in the back, 3 pins in the front. I think that's a really unique design and I like it. I have no issues with it whatsoever. It hasn't caused a problem. And there's good surface tension there. I can tell because it held my scope in place. This 300 PRC, for whatever reason, just has a very sharp, aggressive recoil. And with cheaper rings that don't have even surface tension between the rings, I've just had scopes scoot. They'll scoot around, it loosens things up. It's just one of those rifles with a sharp, aggressive recoil. And maybe it's the cartridge. 300 PRC does have a little bit of stomp to it. So it can move things around. This scope has stayed put in these rings and all of the Torx, which it's like a huge size Torx, they've all stayed tight, which is excellent. I would attribute some of that to using a torque wrench and using appropriate torque. One thing that they do is numerically, they have indicators on here, 1, 2, 3, 4, so you can get your pattern right and get these torqued down appropriately, and you don't do something funky and have a bunch of windage issues. Kind of my case in point, when I put this scope in these rings, and that scope had already been on the rifle, when I put it in these rings, I was basically only a 1/10 or 2 off from my previous 0, which is very impressive. What that tells me is things were lined up really well between the rings and it kept it right where it ought to be. Now something unique is actually a tool in here, a leveling tool. I'm going to pull out. It's this little triangle piece. It's machined quite tightly, which is a good thing. You can see some of the specs there. Looks good, and you have a hole on the bottom. So technically what you could do is loosely put your scope in. Don't tighten the top rings all the way down. Just have them relatively loose, maybe a couple turns in. And then you're going to find the orientation that this wedge is supposed to go in. And as it goes in, like I said, tolerances are tight, which is kind of the point. It should meet up fairly flush with the bottom of your spring housing on your optic. So all optics will have a fairly flat portion there. Some of them might have a big spring cover on the bottom. This one doesn't have a spring cover that's going to interfere, so I can use that flat portion right there, and it's going to meet up really well against the bottom. And then I can go ahead and tighten down my rings with that portion in there, pressing against that, and it'll just keep it level all the way down. And then when that's finished, I will pull out the wedge, and I'll just take this and put it on my Picatinny rail, and I'll make sure everything is torqued down all the way from there. Hit those side pieces. Remember, there's torque settings or specs, 25 inch-pounds on here. I really appreciate that they label that, but kind of a unique little tool here. I haven't seen it done this way before, and I kind of like it. I think I'm going to try that out next time I zero this guy up. Moving on from there, I want to say that there's also numerical indicators on these. So you go 1, 2, and 3, and then 4, and 5. You can go back and forth. There's a pattern here to help you get things tightened down. And just stick to your pattern and make sure when you open your box, you keep the rings in the configuration that makes sense. You don't want to flip them around. I've done that a couple times on a pair of rings where I get the pattern actually wrong. So try not to do that. Keep your rings matched up top with bottom and in the proper orientation. Don't mess it up like I did. Anyways, moving on from there, I'm going to say that the price point on these for being a one piece is pretty impressive. I've looked around on the internet and I'm aware of what the price of single piece mounts in this configuration would be going for, and they're expensive. They're just very, very expensive. And I'm talking about even some of the cheap knockoffs, the ones that are just not very high quality. Even some of those are quite expensive. So for this to be a higher quality mount and to achieve a very reasonable price point, I'm very happy. I think you would be too. The fact that it's survived on the 300 PRC so well, no loosening, no moving. They do use good quality hardware and they have the included tools. This is for the scope rings. Also pretty large size, which I appreciate. I don't like the little dainty ones that strip out so easy. Anyways, price point, build, design. It makes it worthwhile. I highly recommend it. So if you are interested in a pair of rings or you just need a single piece mount like this, I absolutely recommend the one mount from Anubis Defense. Remember, there's a 20 MOA version and a 0 MOA version. Both of them I've had good experience with and are highly recommended. Check out this video if either of these scopes, optics, or aftermarket parts interest you. I think these next videos would be right in line if this one interested you.